Yo, welcome to the BroJ podcast. I am your OJ.
And I'm your bro.
Yep, this is a podcast
And we're doing
where
it.
we talk at you. Hi, Brandon.
And you listen.
Yep.
How
And
you
you
doing,
can't
OJ?
participate, and you can't do anything about it.
So suck it up and sit there and listen.
So sit down and shut up. Don't get out of your seat.
Don't you dare click off this video or this audio or whatever it's going to be.
I will
However
turn
you're
this
listening
bus
to it.
right around. Oh my gosh. Did you ever ride the bus to school?
I did. Yeah.
Bus drivers give the craziest empty threats when you're...
Yeah. Mine. Yeah. Yeah, they do. My first one had stuff like that, but my second one had given up on life. The bus we could be burning seats in the back, and he was just like, I just got to get them to the spot and they'll get off and then I get to go home. he had given up on life. He didn't give a shit what we did in the back of the bus.
That's amazing. I had a couple different bus drivers. One of them was like insanely strict. She always threatened that she was just going to stop and let us off wherever we were. And now, like, looking back at it, I was like, well, she wouldn't actually make us, figure out where we are and find our way home.
Yeah.
But like,
It's a pretty good threat.
but as a kid, it was like, oh, I don't want to walk. I'm too lazy for that.
I don't know where I am.
Oh my gosh. But then, yeah, I did have another bus driver. She was just cool. I don't know that she didn't care, but she like actually learned our names somehow. I don't know if the school
Oh,
gave her a
really?
list of names. It got to a point where like, we had to have this thing attached to our backpacks that said which bus we were allowed to get on. Like they started
Uh-oh.
cracking down on like you couldn't go home on your friend's bus to your friend's house.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like you were assigned a specific bus number and you had to get on that bus. So I think that she must have gotten some sort of list of like kids' names and
What
like
grade was this?
exactly. That was junior high. That started probably around 8th grade. So
Okay.
I would have been 14 or 15. So maybe almost 20 years ago.
Fair. I only
Yeah.
ever took the bus in high school.
Oh, okay.
I didn't do the younger years bus experience.
Oh really? Okay. I did take the bus in high school, even though I had a car. And I did it because it was fun. I did it intentionally because
Okay.
I started loving the bus ride and the friends that I rode on the bus with and like the pure chaos that happened on the bus. It was
Mhm.
like a fun adventure journey every morning. And like we
Fair.
would sit there and we'd chat about like whatever game we had played, what things we unlocked in like at that it was like what's that called? Smash Brothers in the 64, and we talked about like Tony Hawk
Mm.
Pro Skating and like, oh, I found this secret and it unlocked this cool skate video. I gotta show you when we get home. And
Mhm.
like that whole experience of being on the bus and like doing that was like I just treasured it.
No, I get that. I get that. I had the experience of, well, first off, my elementary school was close enough that I just rode my bike there, pretty much.
Mm,
But throughout
okay.
middle school and high school, I had jazz band in the morning, early morning before school started.
Oh.
And so for middle school, we would carpool and then carpool home. And they didn't really offer a bus route in my area that was convenient to the middle school. But then
Mm.
high school, I still had jazz band in the morning, but I didn't have a car, so I'd take the bus home. I never really took the bus in the morning unless jazz band was canceled. And then I didn't get a car till my last year. And then it just made it easier to get to jazz band in the morning to just take my car, and so I just never rode the bus again.
Do you remember if you ever got your bike stolen from school? Because there was a couple times like I wanted to do
Um,
that, but that was my biggest fear because they like
Getting
hyped it
caught.
up at our school, like that kids that somehow bikes would just get stolen, and like to the point where they ended up building this like cage, so
Oh,
you get like
really?
a fence and like a guard that stood at the it's
Oh
like a
my
chain link
gosh.
fence and a guy that stood there and like if you before school he would open it up, make sure every student that came in and put their bike in the rack had like a lock and everything. And so like it
Oh,
was
wow. Yeah, maximum security prison for your bikes.
They did. They made it seem like, you know,
Yeah, like you were gonna go to like juvie for stealing the bike if you got caught. No, mine was nothing like that. I remember it being like what felt like over-explained as to how careful I need to be on how I lock up my bike so it can't get stolen, or like so that my front tire can't get stolen or something like that.
oh,
But
right. The way you weave the chain between all the different pieces.
yeah, like
Yes.
through the wheel. Don't go just around the fork. Make sure you go through the body and around this thing and then this thing and then it's like, okay, well I have to make sure my bike is an inch away from the bar so that the so the chain can actually go through all that. Otherwise, there's not enough room, and you'd sit there and you'd be trying to stretch it together like Captain America holding the plane or the helicopter and the landing pad, trying to pull it together so you can get your lock around it just enough.
Like just a little bit
Just
closer.
a little bit more.
But you need a little more slack.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Oh, actually, I did have a bike stolen on my mission. So,
Oh, okay.
right, I was in Australia, and I remember that, you know, we had gone to just, it was someone's specific house that we were going to just, you know, follow up with and chat with. And we had ridden our bikes. There's light posts like all along the street. So we just put our bikes against this light post. We locked them up. And this was, it wasn't very far from the house we went to. It was like, I would say about 4 or 5 houses away. So it wasn't too far. So just, you know, 4 or 5 houses down, we walked up the front porch, and it was like one of those covered porches, and so like we didn't have eye contact with our bikes exactly when we were at the door. We were at the door maybe a minute max because no one was home. We just knocked, waited, knocked. Well, they're not here. Let's go somewhere else. We come out and look at where our bikes are. Gone.
Oh no, man, that quick.
That quick. It was like less than 2 minutes.
Oof.
The only thing that was left was one of the lights that mounted on the handlebars.
Oh, jeez.
It was just poof, gone that fast. It's impressive. I was a little impressed.
And
Yeah.
for you to not notice it, wow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So something we haven't done in a long time is the I forgot what we call it.
Like the fake news things.
Fake news segment. All right, so we've got 5 fake headlines generated by ChatGPT. Brandon's gonna read them to us, and we'll just comment on them
For no particular reason.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an improv thought exercise to get our brains going.
Okay. Local bakeries' croissants found to contain actual moon dust. NASA perplexed. Oh, that'd be great if that actually happened.
Like NASA's like, wait, how did they get that?
Wait,
we didn't distribute it.
Yeah, like the question would be like, because there's the two things of like, is moon dust what they actually think it is, or is it just like the same as something on Earth, and so that what they've been claiming is moon dust the whole time is just completely wrong, and now they've got to figure that out, or how did someone steal or obtain their own moon dust in mass quantities?
I like imagining that they actually had real moon dust and that it has some sort of unique property to the moon, so it's proven that it's actual moon dust.
Okay, like it has some unique flavor and it adds to the croissants.
Wait, are they doing it secretly or are they marketing it? Maybe they're marketing it and that's why people like, oh, they have moon dust or what?
Well, it's found to contain, so it's like it sounds like it was secret.
So it was secret.
Like we have a secret recipe that we sell the best croissants, and NASA investigated them and found moon dust in it.
Wonder if they thought it had some sort of like addictive chemical or like.
Oh yeah, so like the government decided to look into it just in case.
Everyone's eating these croissants; they can't stop. It's like KFC.
I like to imagine it adds some like really special flavor to it.
Oh, something crazy.
Yeah.
Like maybe it makes you like trip a little bit or like
just a little
have
bit.
Visions of the future.
Just a little extra dopamine hit from eating these croissants.
And NASA's not only like, Well, this is a weird side effect, but they're like, how the hell did you get moon dust?
Yeah. No kidding.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
next
pretty
one.
good.
Flock of sheep accidentally enroll in online university, excel in philosophy. Okay, so I could actually see this one
Okay.
happening in like a weird way of like there's some like herder or something like that had to like register his sheep in something online and like
Okay.
for some kind of like documentation and just accidentally goes to like a university thing. And so his like flock as a whole is just like enrolled and it like auto enrolled it into like some introductory course. But like one of those ones where you just kind of
You just have to be there.
the professor's so bad at that they just somehow completely excel in this like philosophy class.
The grade is 100% dependent on attendance, so they're just
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah.
Or the teacher's just like, yeah, sure, just we'll pretend
Yeah, they're doing
everyone's
great. Because like in some places and for certain agriculture stuff, you really do have to like register like your herd and all the animals in it and stuff like that. So I could see it. Like I know it happens in the UK for sure for
Okay.
like cattle and sheep.
That makes sense. Like maybe you'd have to like tag them, especially if they're like grazing on like the government land or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to like keep track of their numbers at least or something. I could imagine.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
because there's a funny bit about a guy who used to work for like the identification center for some of the animals, and he talked about how like he would get calls in and have to help identify like a cow and like where it came from and who it belongs to or stuff like that. So I know that kind of system exists to some capacity somewhere.
Do they steal each other's identity?
Fake
Some
identity for cows.
some rogue horse is like, or cow's like tears a tag off another cow's ear and like murders him and is like, it's mine now.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Okay.
Ghost Town literally disappears, leaves behind only notes saying gone fishing.
Gone fishing. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, why not go fishing?
Wasn't there a town? Actually, I don't even know if this is true or just a part of a TV show that Supernatural. There was a there was a town, something about when they settled America, and like they just completely disappeared. All the people, not the town itself,
Mm-hmm.
but like there was like a note on left on one of the trees,
Hmm.
and it like carved in a tree, and they like, oh, maybe a virus. It was the name of a virus or something. Why don't I remember what that is?
I don't think I've heard of that one. It
So
wouldn't
something
surprise me.
like that could have happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Miracle skincare cream found to reverse aging. Turns out to just be mud from local park. Absolutely does and can happen.
It happens all the time.
That's a real headline.
Currently is happening.
Oh my gosh, the amount of like just fake snake oil type stuff that just turns out to be the most mundane, stupid things that hits the market is just insane.
Oh my gosh. I remember when there was our last Ebola virus outbreak scare.
Mm-hmm.
Um there was a certain uh essential oil company here in Utah that touted that like it could cure Ebola.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And their logic was that like it kills the Ebola virus on surfaces, so cover your whole house in this type of oil, which that was like technically true, that
Mm-hmm.
it could kill the virus on a surface if it's living there, but like they
They were
kept
vague enough that everyone took it as you could just take this and you're cured.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you were soaking it in what I forget what it was, but I don't know much about their oils. But if you soaked your body in it, you know you're
Yeah.
protected from Ebola. Oh my gosh,
I
that
think
was
my favorite
insane.
version of something like this happening is the guy who sold a cream you could put on that blocked the radio waves from like cell towers from giving you cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's like the conspiracy of like the radio waves from like phone calls and stuff like that would give you cancer. And he sold cream, and it like got to the point where he had to be investigated by like one of the government agencies and stuff like that, and was like forced to shut down all this stuff. But like he like made
Like,
the
what are you
claim that
putting
you
in
just
it? Lead? Are you putting lead in the cream? Like, how are you?
I imagine that he literally took like the base component for like a lotion cream and like maybe added a scent to it, and that's it.
He's probably just going off. It's probably just sunscreen, right? Because that protects you from radiation,
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
right? So probably just something like that. And it's like, oh, maybe
just
we'll just
just
pretend like protects you from radio waves.
just mass buys sunscreen, and then it's just like in his warehouse, just squirting it into the little containers to then sell
Just
off.
pouring it into other bottles. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that'd be great. Okay, bookworms literally eating their way through library classics. Librarians host intervention. The last part, librarians host intervention. Like they care about the bookworms, like they're a part of the library system, but they don't want them eating the books.
So, is there a species called a book? Like, is there a literal bookworm, or is that
No, I think there's a
it's just
moth
people?
that can eat paper.
Oh, okay.
It's either the similar or the exact same as the one that can like eat clothes off of like
Oh,
basically
right.
like abandoned bookshelves if they're left long enough. But I think there's a moth that will do it. I don't think there's literally a bookworm,
Bookworm insect
or maybe there
is
is.
a general name for an insect that is said to bore through books,
Oh,
like beetles,
okay.
moths. Okay, so there you go. Yeah.
I think there used to
Okay.
be. This just came to my head, and I could be totally wrong. But I think at one point the glue that's put on the spine of the book for bookbinding,
Oh yeah.
it used to have a problem of it could
But it's
sometimes it
delicious.
could sometimes it tastes great. It could sometimes contain like insect eggs.
Oh, like the eggs in them.
Yeah, like it used to
Oh.
like have a problem of like containing insect eggs just because like the way it was stored or something like that. And so you could actually have like bugs like
Incubating the eggs in
yeah.
there, just the warmth of the library, and
I think that's a real thing. That could be a myth that I just heard and decided was real, but I remember hearing something like that at one point.
well, how could the librarians host an intervention?
Well, no, the better question is why are they hosting an intervention? Just kill the worm, unless it's like a part of their like library. Like this, it sounds like this worm is like on the payroll of the library and is like helping people, but it's
I
just
could
now
see them
eating through the books.
maybe like having a meeting like, hey, we have this insect problem. We
Yeah.
need funding to be able to eradicate them and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Maybe something like that. But what if these are actually people? What if these are the people who love to read and they've discovered that books taste delicious and
Oh,
they're
so
actually
like
just
the figurative bookworm of like just someone who loves books.
uh-huh. And
Oh.
so books are being returned with bites out of the pages.
Oh, that's even better. I love that.
And they're like, what is happening? We didn't figure out who's eating our books.
And now like an addiction, they're having to host an intervention for these like patrons to get them to stop eating the library classics. Oh, that's great. I like that version way better.
Oh, that's
Oh man,
beautiful.
a bunch of these sound like they could really be on the news site The Onion.
The Onion. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Very cool. All right, I feel warmed up. What's on our list today? All right, you posted something that you know about that I've not heard of yet.
Yeah, so the major online content creation company Rooster Teeth is officially being shut down after 21 years of production by Warner Brothers. Rooster Teeth and Gall, if people are listening to this, I know there's a lot of opinions about why they shut down and all that stuff around it. But at its core value, for did you ever hear the show called Red versus Blue?
Red versus yeah, I just pulled up the Wikipedia. So they did Red versus Blue.
Did
I
you hear about that?
remember the YouTube series where like it was just some people doing like some machinima with
Yes. So that's
Halo
them.
models.
That's so Rooster Teeth, and this could be. Uh, so whether you believe that they started or not, they were a huge inspiration and driver forward of Machinima Works. in the way you
Okay.
do machinima. They were one of the first ones, and Red versus Blue is considered the longest running online series. Period. It holds the record. It's finishing its last season later this year because they're now shutting down. Um, but they went on to like they have a huge podcast network that they got tons of podcasts. They started the group called Achievement Hunters, which were gaming let's plays online, and they kind of drove forward that model of doing let's plays where it was like a group of guys that felt like they were just a bunch of buddies together in a room playing together. They did all sorts of bigger productions. They did some movies. They're just like a huge company that kind of like drove forward this space of creating content online, in my opinion, more so than any other company. And they started before YouTube was even a thing. So
Oh, okay.
they had to like start off with like, well, I guess we got to figure out a website and host some videos so people can watch Red versus Blue. And then eventually they figured out they jumped on the YouTube stuff and helped kind of pioneer some of that stuff, and they still had their own site. But
I
it
remember yeah, it was a little bit before YouTube, not long
mm-hmm,
before, but like there was this guy known as the Star Wars kid who had taken
yeah.
like a camcorder home from school and like recorded himself, battling with a broomstick. But like that was on a website. The only way to see it was to go to his like starwars.net or something like
Mm-hmm,
that and like find the Star Wars kid, and there was no way to play the video in the browser. So you had to download it and play it in like a media player. And like
mm-hmm.
just to watch it was like really hard. And there's a whole
It's really
website
difficult.
that
Yeah.
had everyone's like someone put like the Matrix, image over it, and like but all those were like hosted on a website, not on YouTube. But later on, they moved over to YouTube. Yeah, I remember totally all that sort of stuff.
So they're this big company, and part of the reason that they've been in decline a little bit the last couple of years, and the reason they're shutting down, is the audience has just changed what they like. Like the old audience that like kept them going have gotten older and kind of moved on, and
Mm,
and the ones that stayed want the content to stay the way it was, but the new people kind of jumping on and becoming fans want are consumers of a different type of media and the way you put together a show.
it's
And
like a younger generation.
yeah, like the younger generation
Okay.
is hopping on and they just view content differently than the older generation. And it brought together because we could spend hours on Rooster Teeth alone and talk about tons of stuff that I don't think we need to get into. But it
Okay.
kind of wraps around to this conversation of there's a lot of YouTubers doing the same thing recently that are like have been in the space for 12, 15 years, hanging up the towel and ending the channel rather
Mm.
than trying to do something of like switching the talent, like making someone else the face of the channel, or trying to completely revamp the way they do videos and stuff like that. And I was curious if you have any thoughts as to whether you would prefer that to happen of them quitting and letting the channel and stuff like that kind of die and just not happening more, kind of on a high note or like on whatever note it is, instead of letting it just kind of feeble out till it dies, or whether you would prefer that the channel stays and like new on-screen talent comes on or something like that, but the brand stays
Ooh.
around.
I have mixed feelings about this. I
Yeah.
think when it comes to other things that are similar to that, like TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
um, that like just keep going, and to the point where like the characters don't act like uh, their true character
Mm-hmm.
anymore, and they start making choices, and you're like, wait a second, this is way out of character for you. What are you doing? And it's just because they're in like the 10th season and they're like running out of ideas,
Yeah.
and and it's like, why didn't you just end this show and like have a good ending when it was good?
Mm-hmm.
And so, looking at things from that perspective, I like that things have an end. I like giving closure and ending to stuff, even though the people in charge who just are there just for the money, and they're like, how do we milk more money? How do we make a sequel? How do we expand this further and keep going? Um, right? That's sort of their mentality. But like from the user and viewer perspective, for myself, I feel better when they just end it and go, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
We need an ending. Let's end it. and call it good, and then people can appreciate the entire thing, and it can live as a single, consistent object throughout all time. You can go back and like, yeah, here's the complete
Yeah.
movie, the complete TV series, you know, um, and it didn't get all weird. Like I think MythBusters did something like that. I don't know tons about it, but
Mm.
like they tried to do like the next generation of MythBusters,
They did
and
like a Mythbusters Junior. That's what they
right,
did. They brought in like a bunch of young kids, and um, Adam was mentoring them through different myths, essentially.
right, and from what I hear, it didn't wasn't super successful, but like I can't imagine the people who loved original MythBusters going, yeah, this is Adam and Jamie. They
Yeah.
fell around with those two characters and then go, oh, now I have to fall in love with these other kids that have their different personalities, and the entire premise and everything changes. It's something completely different. So even if you keep the brand and everything around the franchise around and
Hmm.
change the talent, it's fundamentally something completely different anyway. So might as well just end the old thing and start something new.
Yeah. Your
That's how
camera's
I
frozen,
feel.
by the way.
Oh,
And then, so that I agree with that, but I would add to it for the internet personalities. Before Rooster Teeth closed, one of their sub companies, Achievement Hunter, which was the gaming group, they did something that I kind of liked. So they've been on that same decline of like their content's not the same. They were trying new things and people weren't liking it because it wasn't the same old thing. So they finally decided, you know what, the Achievement Hunter brand and that channel, we're we're gonna close it. We're done. But they're just like, but our group members are gonna kind of split off onto these other two series and new brands, and we're gonna start making stuff that we like there. And so rather than just like cutting off all content in like the brand of Rooster Teeth, Achievement Hunter was over, and then they started their regulation gameplay and like another group that they called themselves Dog Bark. But they just kind of like started two new ventures that were similar, but the different thing that they wanted to do with their content. And so that like the old stuff and the people that are stuck in the old stuff, they still have their space and they can go back and watch those videos and enjoy it. And instead of having new content that just makes those people upset, they're now in a new space that is making their version of content that they want. And I like that way of handling it a little bit better, of where they're kind of still related and in kind of the same vein, but it's its own separate thing, and they kind of closed the chapter on the old thing. And so I could see like YouTubers doing something kind of similar, maybe, where they like shut down their channel, but then like they make a new sub channel that's like known to be related. So you kind of like, it'll have essences of like the person that I enjoy watching, but it's under like the new talent or like the new format or whatever. So you still kind of have that like
yeah.
connection for the audience, but it's still its own new
The
thing.
What do they call it? Like a spiritual successor
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
of it. There's This reminds me of a quote from Batman. See, it goes, "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
Yep.
This is one of those quotes that often stays in the back of my head when I realize that I start, especially at jobs,
Hmm.
um, where like I stop having like loving it and stuff like that, and I start like doing monotonous things, and it's like, wow, man, I probably should have either found the next job before I got to this point or something, because now I'm
Mm.
just looking for shortcuts. Now the quality of my work's gonna degrade, and it's not gonna be the
Hmm.
same. Gonna be a bad employee because I'm just bored of this or because I started doing something wrong. But like the first whatever few years probably was like a rock star. And I think that applies to this too. Like I think it's a good idea, regardless of whatever pressures that they had.
Hmm.
Because I read here on their Wikipedia that there was some other allegations in like 2020 of
No, they
like,
had a lot of different issues that happened over the years of like some bad people in the company came to light and lots of different things.
yeah. So right, because if you're around long enough, you start seeing things like this. Even if they're employees that started off good,
Hmm.
you know, crap starts to creep in when things get old. That's just how it is. things start dying. Like Blizzard, like in
Yeah.
Riot Games, like that's just what happens. And at some point, it's
Well,
probably just a good idea to find a way to be like, okay, we're done. We need to stop this and renew in
mm-hmm.
some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's becoming a spiritual successor and like, okay, we're going on to different projects, or finding a way to like change your brand and completely renew yourself and reinvigorate the thing.
Yeah.
But you
No,
got to realize that your viewers and your viewer base, right? Your market is gonna change. They're not gonna like it. They're gonna be done with whatever
yeah.
you did originally.
Yeah. And I don't know. The reason I bring it up is we're in this weird age of internet and the age of entertainment online where things like this are going to start happening. Things are getting old enough to where the demographic of viewers is changing and things are just hitting
Yeah,
that age of
stuff is
like
weird.
needing to be done, and we're hitting this weird, I think we're hitting this weird transition period where companies are trying to figure out how to do that, and some of them
Uh,
are failing miserably, unfortunately, because it's never not been done.
well, there's like
I don't
these
know.
YouTube compilations of like, try not to laugh, and
Hmm.
it it nut. I've watched some of these, and they're like 10 minutes long of like different clips, things weird that are happening, and I go, I don't even understand what happened. I don't even understand
Mm,
how someone thought a part of this. What was the punchline? Did I miss it? It is like, I think the younger generation has such a strongly different paradigm of a sense of humor and a sense of entertainment that like it's
yeah,
really hard to figure out. It is
that's fair.
so weird. And they've got their new terms that like, where do these things even come from? Like one of the more
Hmm.
recent ones, like what, Riz, and that's just like
Yeah,
your charisma,
yeah.
and essentially, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess my
How well you
generation had
flirt.
weird words,
Yeah,
but
I
and
don't know.
it's like things like that. It actually, and I think it goes back to like our language, um, and how our language controls how we think. So because of the way that English is, you
Hmm.
essentially like dream. There, each word has a concept attached to it, like that influences the way you think.
Hmm.
And so, like when you dream, you're essentially dreaming in English. Also, like your mind's subconsciousness has concepts that are patterned after the language that you know.
Hmm.
And so, people who know different languages, like they have different ideas and concepts with different words, and it completely changes the way they think. So, I think the younger generation having different words that represent new concepts, I think it completely changes the way they think altogether, and it's an entirely new culture.
Hmm. I'd agree with that.
So I think that's what's happening. But yeah, as far as YouTubers though, I saw a lot of not even just like YouTubing organizations, but individual YouTubers also are like, you know what, I'm done, and that's happened a lot this year. There's
Hmm.
quite a few of them. Uh, Rhett and Link actually made a video
Hmm.
pretending like they were gonna do it. It was like, we're done, and I'm like, what? And thought they were going to do it, but they're like, no, we're done. You trying to pitch our ideas to other companies. We're just going to do it ourselves. So we're doing more. So it turned
Ultimate
into,
clickbait.
yeah, totally. It was pretty clever, but I like those guys. I remember I told you a little while ago I was watched some of the Good Mythical Morning, and it was
Hmm.
like it looked like they weren't that into it. And I can imagine that maybe they just have some off days or something, but like
Yeah.
watching the Rhett and Link channel, like they have so many different projects actually going on. They have tons of passion stuff that they're doing.
Hmm.
And what's cool about them is that like they're just doing what they want.
Yeah.
Regardless of the market, and whoever enjoys what they're doing, they'll find the content.
Yeah.
And that's their new perspectives. That was essentially the premise of that video of we're done trying to alter our ideas to a production company or something to
Hmm.
fit what they know the market wants. They're like, we don't care about that anymore. We're not going to change our stuff to try to fit whatever. We're just going to run with our ideas because it's our passion. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's very cool.
Hmm.
that they're doing that. I hope it works for them. Regardless, it's going to make them happy,
Yeah.
which is really cool. So from their user base, who knows what their user base is and if they'll enjoy it. I'm not a regular fan of theirs, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see what they come up with because it sounds like they've got some cool plans. So I don't know. That's a different take on it
Yeah.
of just pushing forward and just being like, who cares?
Yeah.
We're just gonna do what we want. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that. I think there's some Twitch streamers that fall into that realm. When you get to a certain like viewer base level, um, I've noticed Asmongold doing this recently.
Okay.
He was for a long time just a World of Warcraft streamer, and it was really hard to watch him. I remember going and watching him a couple times. Like, I don't get why this guy's so popular. And I didn't enjoy some of his, his opinions and stuff like that. But more recently, within the last couple of years, he's completely changed. He's like, screw it, I don't care what people want to hear. I'm just gonna speak my mind.
Yeah.
And he's been going off. He makes like 3 videos almost every single day
Oh my
of
gosh.
like he has gone hard, and he'll just look up news, drama, anything. He'll react to it and give his very, very harsh, real opinion about it. He's like, I don't care if anybody likes or agrees or aligns with my opinion. This is just what it is.
There you go. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So there's that part of it where I go, okay, I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the viewer base is going to change, obviously, but like, I
Yeah.
think it's better for the content creator to do that and go, I'm going to do what I want to do. So I guess with these Rooster Teeth guys, from what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like they want to keep doing what they want, but they can't do it with the Rooster Teeth
Yeah.
brand, essentially. So they're branching off. They're going to create something new, but try just so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. They were trying to do that, but they had become too much of a corporate company that was then bought by a bigger corporate company to like fully do that. And so now like just companies just completely shutting down, and those creators will go off and continue to do what they want to do via other avenues, I'm sure. But because they were kind of trying to do that, but when you're when you're in the space that you're trying to make content becomes too corporate, it hits the same restrictions that I think like TV shows and stuff hit, where you have to meet certain numbers and you have to meet certain profitability to be allowed to
Yeah.
do it at that point, because like you said, your viewership and stuff like that is going to drop. But and typically if you find something that you're passionate about, other people that enjoy that and find it funny will find you, and your numbers will begin to climb again if you're good at what you do. But you have to be able to endure that low period, and they had been operating at a loss for so long that their
Right.
numbers were
Oh.
already dropping so steadily for so long, and they were trying to hold on to that and try to just fix what they were already doing for so long, that they got to a point where when they went to go do that switch, they didn't have enough
Oh no.
in the company to impress the people that owned
Oh
them to
no.
keep the company alive.
Oh no. They accelerated the implosion.
Yeah,
Oh
a little
no.
bit. Yeah,
Interesting.
it was an interesting problem because of how corporate the company became, because of how long it existed and how big it grew. I mean, this was a company that was started by like 5 guys that were in it at the same tech job together, essentially making RVB in someone's apartment. All the way to the point where like they were doing like movie productions and lots of really big corporate level things. I mean, they had like
Dang.
full animation studios, full like live production and podcast. I mean, a very large, and whether you agree with it or not, successful company. But that just kind of got stuck with a user base that was changing and didn't adjust properly, in a mix of some unfortunate scandals due to some higher ups and stuff like that, important people doing some really shady bad stuff, lots of problems that happened that make it not too much of the company's fault that everything went bad,
Right.
but enough went bad with just the company and how they were trying to handle the changes that it just compounded on top of the problems that they had and kind of forced them to implode a little bit.
It's so weird that sort of mentality of like a large corporation where it sort of shifts the nature of the company,
Mm-hmm.
and because it gets to the point where so much of it is driven by money. So much of it is driven by money, and this and what they call quote unquote success.
Mm-hmm.
It's as I've been searching through jobs and stuff on like LinkedIn and things, a lot of the descriptions in some jobs are like fast paced, competitive, growing, and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's like these companies, they want to get to that point. They're trying desperately, and I sort of get it. Like, yeah, making money is one of the main points of it, but like, it's almost as if they've lost focus on doing something you enjoy is also a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it when things start become only money driven, and like you lose track that your employees want to enjoy their jobs, that they're there just to so they can do that job. They want to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a couple jobs I've been at where like they were startup companies, but like they tanked themselves because
Mm.
they reached for the stars too young, and they start putting like unrealistic, right? They start promising, the sales guys start promising things. Our product's going to do
Yeah.
this. We're going to do this. Let's get a whole bunch of new. So you start getting a whole bunch of new customers because you're lying to them, and then it puts pressure on the developers. Like, okay, we promised these features. All right, let's crank out these features, you guys. And then
Yeah.
it has to go through that whole process. The feature sucks. It borks the whole product. Um, and then everyone who was there originally, the original, what are they called? Shareholders,
Founders.
stakeholders in the company, right? The original customers, they're like, this isn't the same thing we bought. You guys have changed. You're
Mm-hmm.
breaking it. You've destroyed the things we loved in it,
Yeah.
and now your product sucks.
Yeah.
And you've sacrificed us just so you could get more, make more
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
The company's lost its spirit that it originated with. So yeah, you see this thing in other companies too. I've been there in those startups, and it's so weird that it seems to always be sort of the same catalyst, this drive to be a huge corporation and make money, and just grow and grow and grow, and they don't realize what they're sacrificing, and the pressure it puts on everyone else when they drive so hard at that.
Mm-hmm. And I and to add to that, a lot of companies at the beginning they find their success and they get into this mode of, well, if we crank it out faster and just work extra hard now, it'll be better, more successful in the future. But then all of a sudden, there's then that expectation that everything keeps moving at that pace, and they can no longer keep up with it. And like that was
Yeah.
one of the things that happened at Rooster Teeth,
Ooh.
specifically with Achievement Hunter, where they were cranking out specific videos for specific games on like a schedule. And all of a sudden, they
Ooh.
got to a certain point where, without making the fan base upset, they had to keep up with that constantly and come up with new ideas for those same games every single week
And
at
of
this like
course, they won't.
schedule.
You won't hire more staff. Of course, you won't try to put money into the
Well,
things that would make it
but
feasible.
no, but then you have to bring on new talent,
Yeah, yeah.
and then there's the problem of
Then you lose money, and then the whole point of making more money by doing that thing is gone.
no, but like taken away from the corporation side, the fan base revolts because all of a sudden there's this new person that doesn't fit into the group, and I don't like this person, and so I no
Oh
longer like
no.
this video. Or like I find
Oh
this new person
no.
annoying that
Yeah.
I just met, and I haven't even given a chance to let them find their dynamic in the group. And so I don't know. You end up getting excited about the success. So you work a little bit overtime and off of a normal work schedule because you're a group of friends making content. Specifically
Yeah.
with the Achievement Hunter and Rooster Teeth, that you get to this like rotation that then the viewer base expects, and you kind of run yourself into the ground once you get bigger and wanted to do other things on top of what you're already doing, and
Oh
it
no.
becomes kind of unfeasible. I don't
This
know.
is why they need to just use AI and deep fake themselves
There
essentially.
you go. There you go. Just make
That's
fake versions of themselves to do all the
I mean, that's the answer. That's where we're headed.
Possibly.
Very literally. Yeah. I don't think people have realized that yet. Actors and talent are afraid of it, but I don't think they realize that that's actually the answer to a lot of these sort of problems is AI.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
help with some of that, right? I'm sure someone's be like, "Wait a second, this isn't really that. It's been deep faked."
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that like the problem shows up in very different symptoms, right? We could call that a symptom of whatever happened there
Mm-hmm.
with Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunters, but like the cause seems to be the same. Is this huge corporation desire to rapidly grow?
Mm-hmm.
Seems to always be the cause of this sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
is.
frustrating to be there in a company and you watching them do it and you're like, "Oh no, you guys." And they're like, "Guess what? We just hired 20 new sales reps." And as soon as your CEO says that, GG, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it should be the they forget what the model was originally, right? Was to create the thing and then
Then
sell
sell
the
the
thing.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you want to grow, like, and you're like gonna offer whatever new crazy features in order to get new customers, you make those things first and then sell the things. But of course, you know, the greediness is what destroys it all.
Yep.
Very frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see. What do I have on my list here? So I've been okay, along the lines of AI. I've
Mm-hmm.
been doing a course through like a YouTube video. It's just like this boot camp
Mm-hmm.
YouTube video to learn PyTorch. You know, it's just a library, but it's used to train AI models with machine learning and deep learning. And so I'm like learning all this stuff, and it's like, oh, this is so good. Have you ever done like a YouTube boot camp or a video boot camp of some
Yeah,
kind
I
to like
have.
learn a language or something?
Yeah.
So like, there's this teaching technique that it drives me crazy, and I don't think I've seen it only in maybe it's in real life too, but like, um, it's along the same vein of using trick questions to teach students. So right,
Okay.
you teach your student concepts, a way of doing something, and then you present them with a new scenario, and you ask this question, you present this problem, and then they just use what they learned to try to solve the problem, but they can't because it's not the answer. You haven't taught them yet what the answer is, and so it's like this weird trick question. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're right, it doesn't work in this scenario. We have to do something completely different. I've seen this happen a couple times in different programming lessons,
Yeah.
but in this particular one, it was really bad, and it made me almost rage quit yesterday. But like, he
Yeah.
he's teaching me essentially machine learning, and I was just learning like how to predict dots on a straight line
Mm-hmm.
and whatever, trained a machine learning model and figured it all out. And he goes, okay, now what we're gonna do is a new concept. We're gonna have a circle made up of a lot of little dots, and then like concentric. What are they called? You know the
Concentric.
word. Thank you. Concentric circles. So there's an inner circle and an outer circle,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to get a random coordinate, and you have to determine if it's on the inner circle, on the outer circle, and you have to teach this thing to learn this. And so I'm going to show you. And so we go through all these steps to create this machine learning model that we did for the first lesson,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of steps. And the whole time I'm sitting here going like, this isn't going to work. These are circles, not a straight line. Like the whole
Yeah.
time, like I'm so frustrated. Why are we following these same steps? This is stupid. And like, I'm like, okay, but if you say this, so I'm writing all these notes, following along, and we
Yeah.
get to the very end. He's like, all right, let's train the model. Let's run through it. Uh-oh, it didn't work. I'm like, well, no, you
I
just
don't.
wasted
I don't like that.
5 hours going through this whole thing to teach me something that didn't work. I like
Yeah.
when it was very obvious from the beginning. Oh,
Yeah. I've been a part of courses that don't take it that far, but like present like the option of like okay, we're now going to try a different concept, but like they go into it basically preemptively telling you that what we previously learned is not going to work and we need to build upon it. I've never done a course that like
He went
almost is
hard
like
into it.
that like goes that hard into the trick to then be like, okay, all this stuff that you've been like rapidly trying to learn for this concept is now just all false.
Yep.
Try to
Oh,
forget all that you just associated with this problem. Try to
yeah.
forget everything you just learned with this problem, and now we have to do it a different way. I hate that. I feel like I've experienced that a couple times in college with a couple classes. None come to mind, but I hate that because you're in that mode of learning and
Yeah.
attaching a solution to a problem and concept, and then at the very end they're like, but this is all wrong and now this is how you do it, and you're like, I just freaking put it into my head that that's how you do it.
Yeah. We spent
I
5
hate
hours
that.
across a couple of days grinding into my brain. Okay, this is somehow, for whatever reason, it doesn't make sense to me, but you're going to reveal at the end that
Yeah.
somehow this, okay, my brain doesn't want to accept this, but I'm going to force my brain to accept it. Okay, I'm on board. And at the end, haha, just kidding.
See, in my opinion, the better way to do that is like, well, now let's look at the problem of doing this with a circle, and then like in the first like maybe
Right.
15 minutes being like, okay, so we just did it with a line. Obviously, those are two different shapes. Here are kind of the reasons why this might not work. This is how we have to change it to now work with circles. Now let's solve the circle problem. It's like
Right.
you can
Exactly.
you can take the 5 hours that guy wasted and compress it into like 20 to 30 minutes max of like I hate that. I hate that because it just ruins. There's now going to be that like memory of learning in your head that's going to take you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, it might only like take you down the wrong path for like a minute when you get to that problem in the future, but still, there's going to be that moment of like mixed concepts, and I hate that. I hate that. I hate that so much.
It was so annoying. And like, so I was like, I'm not even gonna, because I got to the point where he's like, now I'm gonna show you the solution, and I'm like, F you, dude. I'm gonna find my own solution. So then I spent several hours yesterday going, okay, how do I create? Forget this guy. Let's just use my own brain. I
Yeah.
know how to program. Let's figure this out. And like within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, what if? Because the circles were on like a full grid, so the very center is 0 0, and
Mm-hmm.
so like the quadrants, the 4 quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
um Whereas when we did the line thing, it was just like the positive quadrant. I think it's quadrant 2, where it's
Okay.
positive y and positive x. And so, but the circle, 0 0 was in the center, and I go, well, all I have to do really is calculate the distance from the center and create like find the radius, and I could actually just fold all the other 3 quadrants into the first one, just make everything positive, and it should work to learn the
Mm-hmm.
opposite. So all I had to do was find, all right, let's take the input of the coordinate, find the absolute value of it, and train it on that. So just
Mm.
adding one little method, I go, okay, the absolute value of the input, and then bam, it went from 50% accuracy up to 85% accuracy of being
Yeah.
able to do them. Like, there we go. I added one tiny little function and almost doubled the accuracy of this learning model in the same
Yeah. Yeah.
method. But like things that are like that obvious, and like it's so obvious that there's a completely different solution. Why go through the pain of like teaching us this wrong way?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just me griping. But I guess if anybody's out there who's a teacher, yeah, don't teach that way. It's the worst. Trick questions is not a good way of teaching. Right? You present the
trick answer.
problem, and you let people know up front that this is
Yeah.
different. The solution's gonna be different.
Yeah. Trick
And
questions
don't
that
waste
you
time.
elaborate on too much is just wrong.
Yeah,
Don't.
that's like it's a decent intro if like it's one quick, 5 minute
Yeah.
problem solving session.
A single statement.
Yeah, but you spend hours on this trick. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that was so bad. But also, what I'm learning here is that I'm very very what's the word? Have you heard about artists complaining about AI, right? About how
Mm-hmm.
uh things like Midjourney are taking pieces of art and then like meshing them together to create new art.
Yes.
And have you heard it explained that way, where like art's being copied? Because I've
Yes.
heard it being explained that way, and I don't think that's true at all. Because what is happening is you're training a model, you're training it with the art. And
Yes,
then,
but it's the training on the art part that's the controversy.
right. Because when the model is said and done and it's finished, right? You have a version of it. The art is all gone, and all that's left is what it learned.
To a point, it still has to copy what it learned. Because AI is not to the point where it can think for itself and be creative.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
I
I
I think
mean,
that I think that's a hard truth because that's one of the major steps for a um an AI that passed like the Turing test kind of a thing. That's like
I
a
would say yeah. I don't think it could invent
it can't be
some sort of
creative.
new concept,
No, so it
right?
has to take what it knows and copy it and combine it in a different way.
Right. So it's like, and that's what I've sort of been learning is like, okay, while I'm creating this learning model, the person creating it has to know everything that it, like, a person has to be able to put in the formulas. So someone had to have gone through the work of like, okay, this is how hands work. This is how you're going to draw hands. Here's how fingers work. Here are the dimensions. Here's all the different, like, obviously it's like several thousand,
Well, the
they're
person making
called
the AI
neurons.
doesn't put that input in. That's the nature of AI. It tries to figure that stuff out itself.
Well, okay. Yes.
Depending on the
But what
model
you
of
do is
AI
you,
you're doing.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. But and if it does learn that itself, right? So like, but it can't. You're right. It has to learn things that like have already been known. It can't just invent something new. So
mhm.
absolutely right. But like, it's it's still not exactly copying the exact images. It's learned patterns. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's very similar to how humans learn patterns and have learned how to draw like a hand.
Mhm.
Is just I understand the concept. There's gonna be five fingers, and there's like the big like you learn these concepts, but like I could probably draw a really crappy hand, but without but it's based on all the hands I've seen in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to I just in my gut I go, you know what? It's not copying. It just learns patterns and concepts and it's implementing them, but it's not taking the actual pixels from the art it learned from. So it's hard to say that it's actually copying it. And that's just my stance.
Fair.
I feel like it's just not actually copying it. Sure, it learned from that and it's learned styles because of what it trained on.
Mhm.
I think that's probably the bigger problem, right? You could say, hey, do this in Brandon's style. And so if it trained and learned what Brandon's art style is, it could probably, it knows your patterns.
Yeah.
But like a human could do that too.
Yeah. It's the
But is
weird
it actually
distinction.
copying it?
Yeah, it's whether you give it yeah, the actual copy part, I understand where you're coming from. And it's whether you give AI the freedom and the legal freedom that a human has. Because humans still have the ability and the creative thought to be able to make something new, whereas AI doesn't. And
Okay.
and there's this weird problem with AI. And it's a problem. The only way to describe it is you have to put away all biases and opinions as to whether AI is like copying and all the other stuff. You got to put that away and think of it as purely a business object, so to speak. So one of them,
Okay.
the best one I can describe is using AI as a search engine. Okay.
Okay.
I can go into one of the AI search engines and just tell it what I want to find, and it's really good at coming back with the information I want. Like how many cups, how many ounces are in a cup, or like any of those like kitchen conversions and stuff like that. As a really simple example,
Okay.
it's going to a website and getting that information and bringing it back to me. That's the basic
Okay.
core
Yeah.
function of like the AI searching through a search engine
The
for
search
me.
ones. Yeah.
But then you got to go into the position of, well, how did that information get online? Because someone decided to take their time and put it online, right?
Right.
And their compensation is via a human going to their site and seeing an advertisement. And
Mm.
now they're making money, which allows them and gives them incentive to put more information online. And all of a sudden you introduce AI, and now suddenly those people who are taking the time and have the motivation to put something online are no longer getting paid and no longer have the motivation to put something online. And suddenly information becomes stagnant, and the search engines and AIs end up killing themselves because no new content is on there for them to search and bring back for the user. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You jumped really far into the future there, but yeah, I
No,
think I
yeah, no,
followed
yeah,
you.
that's jumping way
Where,
far into the future. That's not like a fast thing,
but for sure,
but
I could see that.
it
It
is
would
a thing.
starve out. It would starve out
It's
website
it starves
builders.
out the information,
Yeah.
and so you have to you have to preemptively, because that can happen fast. If people jumped onto AI search engines fast enough, especially with how fast people jumped onto something like Google,
Yeah.
that would actually happen relatively fast.
Because it's stealing.
It's
So
stealing,
the point is that it's stealing the contents of the website and reformatting it and taking credit for it.
and I wouldn't even put it like that, because that goes into like the weird opinions of like, is it the AIs? Is it the person who put it there? That goes into that conversation. It's more of you're taking away the motivation for whoever put that information up there in the first place, because they're no longer getting revenue from it. And so
Right.
what's the reason for them to put more information up in the future?
Right. And I see that and I wonder if
It's
Google's search engine. I wonder. Hmm.
because it doesn't
Because I see
count
that
as an
already
ad
with
view.
Google. Right. Where like I'll Google something, and uh, sure there will be a like one of the first links will have an answer in it, but it summarizes the answer. It goes, "Hey, I've well thought out the answer you're looking for from this website." So it's
Mm-hmm.
giving a reference, but it's like, but here's the answer, and it pulls it out of the website and summarizes it to the point where I don't have to click the link. I go,
Yeah,
oh yeah, no, that's just the answer. I don't even have to click.
yeah.
So they don't get credit for me, the whatever it's called, right? The
They don't get a pay per view.
the traffic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Google did it instead. So I wonder if Google even looking it up,
it doesn't count
um,
as a view for ad
it
revenue.
doesn't count.
It doesn't.
So they're already doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's already happening, and so it's like you have to, and so that same concept for the using an AI search engine. Your camera's frozen again, by the way.
Oh,
Um, the same concept for that, I think, can translate to the other parts of AI, to where I think I think the ability of using AI for all these different things is smart and is going to happen regardless, but it needs to happen in a way to where it doesn't kill the human creators of X thing that AI is also trying to create. So like in the
mm,
artist world of like creating things as an artist, you need to
okay.
we gotta put in a
Oh,
lot of effort into creating a way to where those two worlds can exist amicably together. Whether that unfortunately means the AI side, you know, moves forward a little bit slower just because of the nature of the thing, but you can't move it so fast and so aggressively that you kill the source of the AI's ability to learn and get better by killing the human side of it. So if you get so good at AI to where you've killed the human artist's ability to create art and be expressive and create new things, then you've stagnated and killed the ability of the AI, and it'll forever be stuck in the time capsule of its last ability to really learn something new. And that
that makes
kind of
sense.
kills the progression of the entire art form just because AI was introduced.
It starves itself.
It starves itself. The
Huh.
AI learning from the humans kills the human side of it, and therefore the AI side can no longer learn anything and get any better. And so there's got to be this like equilibrium that happens, probably
Right.
more preferable for the sake of the AI being successful. It actually needs to be more profitable and beneficial for the humans.
Interesting.
Otherwise, both sides are going to kill themselves, and then you get this weird stagnant that maybe nobody complains about, but then there's no progression in said subject. Like
Uh,
nobody's going to complain that because they can still look up how many cups are
right.
like how many fluid ounces are in a gallon. People can still look that up, but they'll never be able to look up some future thing in the future because there's no incentive for it to exist anymore because revenue or ad companies have pulled all their ads out because they're not making money off it being on that site anymore. And eventually maybe that server that was hosting it is no longer getting revenue because the people aren't paying to host their sites anymore, and then that shuts down. And suddenly in that aspect the AI loses its ability to find that information. So that's like a loss of information on that example. But in most examples, I think the information just stays stagnant and non-progressive, which is, in my opinion, kind of scary for humans because we kind of thrive and need the progression of things. So we don't just turn into like vegetative couch potatoes in the same world that we've created for decades and decades, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It makes me a little bit frustrated that it feels like a lot of people who are talking about that issue don't see that problem or think
I've
about that
not
problem.
heard that point before, actually.
And
So this is going to take a minute for my mind to digest it.
I don't know. It bugs me because so many people are so hard of there should be no art AI. Period. You know, I'm an artist. There should be no art AI. It's all mine. It's like, okay, I get that, but like, it's another cool tool that I think could help progress things. But you're right. It needs to not take away from what you're doing, not steal from you as an artist. But you know, it's a new technology, and I think it needs to learn to coexist with you, and it needs to be like thought about on both sides without them both killing themselves. Because I think it could turn in. I think without thinking about it, it could turn into a big problem really quick for the world. And the AI search engine one is the one that scares me the most. That one scares me the most. Is if those become too big without a solution being found for that, or without it being regulated in some way. That one,
And the internet has a great history of being regulated.
yeah. And so that one scares me to death. Of like, I don't know if people realize how quickly that could kill a lot of the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, just think
Internet
of
apocalypse.
I mean, yeah, I mean, just think about some of the really big things in the internet and how quickly they became a thing and vanished, and how quickly they became
Yeah.
popular and took over a medium or a section of the internet and then disappeared.
What if the internet was just gone?
The you
Completely gone one day, and all it is an AI interface, a single AI interface.
that doesn't know
And
anything.
and it is the right. And it's been trained on everything. Like it knows everything that was on the internet at that point, right?
Yeah, but
But
that's it.
like but that's it. That's all we have.
No new concepts. It could know no new concepts.
It's as frustrating as using like ChatGPT version 3 instead of 4 because it's because it like doesn't know some of the new libraries in Python, and it's just like I don't know, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, that doesn't
It would be
exist.
that frustrating, right? Whereas
Hmm.
like you go, oh my gosh, it doesn't even know.
Yeah, like what was on the news today? It could no longer answer that question.
Yeah.
Because who the hell is going to put news online and not get paid for it? Nobody's that
Yeah.
passionate about news and has the time to scrape news that they can no longer find because nobody's posting news online. It's just like,
Oh
I
my.
mean, just think about the fact that YouTube is what, 15 years old?
Yeah.
15 years is not a long time.
No.
I'm 30.
Right.
That's only half of my lifetime that YouTube's been around. and it's taken over. And so in the span of 15 years, it started as nothing. It became a big thing, to where YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, next to Google, which owns it. And so if you think about an AI search engine not taking this thought into consideration, how quickly it could grow, it could technically grow as fast as Google and YouTube has. To where, like, in 10 years, it's just what everybody uses. And it's like, if it doesn't take into consideration all that stuff, that very quickly compounds into, like, the internet essentially imploding.
And if anybody happens to, right, put something new on there, it immediately consumes it and makes it irrelevant.
Well, yeah, it makes it, and yeah, the only thing that would keep new information alive is people who are passionate in it for zero returns. And that's probably still gonna exist, because there's always gonna be people who are passionate enough about the thing that they love that they are willing to throw out information with no benefit to themselves. But like you said, to compound on top of that, AI will, this sounds harsh, but essentially bastardize the content that this person put in and reword it and phrase it in however the AI wants. And it's not going to be explained in the way that the person explained that information. AI is going to bastardize it to whatever content length that they want to present to their user, however their user is likely to consume it. Like this user likes to see all the details. This one likes to see 2 sentences, and so the AI is going to adjust to what that user likes and will bastardize the content to whatever that is, and then you'll no longer have the original source. And so those people that like the short form are going to be missing ideas and concepts that they'll never ever see, because the AI has learned that they'll are most likely to read and respond nicely to those short clips and never see the full information by accident.
Well, thanks, Brandon. You know, I wasn't afraid of AI. I was like, man, I mean, it's kind of dangerous until right now. Okay. And visualizing that. Some sort of internet apocalypse.
It's the concept of AI being too good too fast that it kills its source of what makes it good. And in the sense of a search engine, that affects way more than just the AI.
All right, I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm gonna spend a lot of time pondering this.
Sorry, I mean, again, those are my opinions, but I think
makes sense.
I think they're ones to at least consider, because it scares me that I don't see this conversation happening more between, the arguing groups of human versus AI.
Right. Okay.
But
all right. Well, thank you. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
I'm like shell shocked a little bit here. Okay. Well, thanks for surfing in and consuming our content.
I feel like I may have hit that topic a little too hard.
No, it's good. And while we still can, and before AI starts making its own podcast, actually, it's just going to consume our podcast.
Yeah, it'll just take our
voices
voices
it down
and
to
make
5 minutes, and represent it to you. But until that day happens, you have us here. It's also on Spotify.
Yep.
Sayonara.
Bye.